Thane, you promised you'd be here. Zuri Brooks, a radiant African-American woman, 8 months pregnant, strides into Northwestern Memorial Hospital alone. Her deep pink bodycon dress with bold straps hugs her curves, her long, sleek hair swaying. Thane Warwick, her white CEO husband, has grown distant, blaming boardroom chaos for missed checkups. In the hospital garage, his silver Maserati gleams. Hope flickers. Has he come to surprise her? But through a consultation room window, her heart shatters. Thane tenderly kisses the belly of Lyra, his pregnant white assistant, as they study ultrasound images. Both women, due to give birth on the same day, are pawns in his hidden double life. What will Zuri do next? Will justice prevail? Stay tuned. Her revenge will leave you shocked. Rate this intro. 1 for gripping, 0 for dull. Zuri Brooks stood at the edge of her Chicago penthouse balcony, the city's skyline a glittering mosaic below. Thane, you swore we'd build this life together, she whispered, her voice swallowed by the evening breeze. 8 months pregnant, she glowed in a deep pink bodycon dress, its bold straps framing her shoulders, her long, sleek hair cascading like a midnight river. An African-American queen, Zuri had carved her place in this world, her strength rooted in resilience. The penthouse, perched atop a Gold Coast tower, screamed success. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a grand piano Thane had gifted her on their 3rd anniversary. Yet as she rubbed her swollen belly, feeling her son's gentle kicks, the luxury felt hollow. Her husband, Thane Warwick, CEO of Sterling Ventures, was slipping away. The Chicago River sparkled below, its waters reflecting the city's restless pulse. Zuri leaned against the glass railing, her reflection a portrait of hope and unease. Thane, a white man of 40, had once been her everything. His sharp blue eyes, easy charm, and promises of forever had swept her off her feet. 5 years ago, in a rooftop garden under these same stars, he'd knelt, vowing to make her dreams come true. Now those dreams felt like fragile glass. His late nights had multiplied, each excuse polished to perfection. Boardroom crisis, love, he'd say, kissing her forehead, before vanishing with his briefcase. Sterling's investors are relentless. She'd nod, her smile practiced, but the silence he left behind gnawed at her. Tonight the penthouse was too quiet. Zuri paced past the sleek leather sectional, her bare feet sinking into the plush rug. The city's hum, honking cabs, distant jazz from Rush Street, filtered through the open balcony doors, but it couldn't drown her thoughts. Thane's phone, once left carelessly on the counter, was now a constant shadow in his pocket, screen locked, buzzing with secrets. She'd caught him last week, stepping into the study to take a call, his voice low, urgent. Work stuff, he'd mumbled, avoiding her eyes. Her fingers traced the curve of her belly, her son's movements grounding her. We're enough, aren't we? She murmured, as if he could answer. Her sister Nia's voice echoed in her mind, sharp and unyielding. Zuri, he's not acting right, Nia had said over coffee at a Loop Cafe, her braids swinging as she leaned forward. I saw him near Michigan Avenue yesterday, middle of the day, looking too cozy with some woman. Zuri had laughed, brushing it off. Thane's a CEO, Nia. He's networking, always on the move. But Nia's raised brow lingered, planting a seed of doubt. Zuri turned from the balcony, her dress hugging her curves, and crossed to the kitchen island. A photo of her and Thane smiled back. Her in a flowing gown, him in a tailored suit, arms around her at a Sterling Ventures gala. His grin had felt so real then. Now the signs were harder to ignore. His suits carried a faint floral scent, not her jasmine perfume. He'd started showering the moment he walked through the door, claiming the office stress clung to him. Gotta wash the day off, love, he'd say, disappearing into the steam. Zuri's hand tightened around her phone, tempted to call Nia, but pride held her back. She was Zuri Brooks, daughter of a South Side single mother who taught her to stand tall. She wasn't some fragile wife unraveling over suspicions. Yet as she sank onto the sectional, her hair fanning out, the loneliness pressed harder. Other husbands attended checkups, held hands during ultrasounds. Thane hadn't been to one in months. She opened her phone, scrolling to a video of her son's heartbeat from her last appointment at Northwestern Memorial. The rhythmic thump filled her with warmth, but Thane's absence stung. "Busy, babe," his text had read, curt and cold. She sat alone in the sterile waiting room, surrounded by couples sharing whispered excitement. Her thumb hovered over his contact, the urge to call him warring with her fear of what she might hear. What if Nia was right? What if the man who'd promised her the world was building another one without her? The city lights blurred as tears pricked her eyes. Zuri stood smoothing her dress, her reflection in the window fierce despite the ache. She was no fool, but love had a way of clouding truth. Tomorrow she'd face another checkup alone, clutching hope like a lifeline. Would Thane show up this time, his hand in hers, sharing the joy of their son's kicks? Or was something darker waiting, ready to shatter her gilded cage? She whispered to her belly, "We'll be okay, little man." But the city's pulse seemed to mock her, hinting at secrets yet to unfold. One thing was certain, Zuri's strength was stirring, and whatever lay ahead, she'd face it head-on. Zuri Brooks sat alone in the sterile glow of Northwestern Memorial's maternity ward waiting room, her deep pink bodycon dress clinging to her pregnant frame, bold straps framing her shoulders, her long, sleek hair a cascade of defiance against the cold fluorescence. The rhythmic hum of the hospital buzzed around her, but it couldn't drown out the ache in her chest. Her phone rested in her lap, the screen dark, Thane's curt text from an hour ago still burning in her mind. "Swamped, love. Can't make it." She traced a finger over her belly, feeling her son's gentle kick, a reminder of the life they were supposed to share. "Just you and me again, little man," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of love and loneliness. The waiting room was a parade of couples, hands intertwined, eyes bright with shared anticipation. A young man across from her rubbed his partner's back, murmuring about nursery colors. Zuri's heart twisted. She'd imagined Thane here, his warm hand on hers, marveling at their son's heartbeat. Instead, she clutched her phone, filming the ultrasound screen alone. The technician's kind smile a poor substitute for her husband's absence. Every checkup was the same. Empty promises, sterile rooms, and Zuri forcing a brave face. She was an African-American woman, forged in strength, raised by a mother who'd faced the world alone, yet the isolation gnawed at her, sharp and relentless. Her sister Nia's words clawed at her thoughts. "Zuri, he's not acting right," Nia had said, her voice slicing through the cozy hum of a Loop Cafe. "I saw him yesterday, middle of the day near Michigan Avenue with some woman, too close for networking." Zuri had laughed it off, her pride a shield. "He's a CEO, Nia. It's just business." But now in the waiting room's stark light, her laughter felt hollow. She shifted, her dress catching the chair's edge, and opened her phone to re-watch the ultrasound video. The steady thump of her son's heartbeat soothed her, but Thane's absence was a louder pulse, echoing Nia's warning. Zuri's fingers tightened around her phone. She wanted to call Thane to demand why he couldn't spare an hour for their child. But fear stopped her. What if his voice held that same guarded edge she'd heard too often lately? His suits had started carrying a floral scent, not her jasmine, faint but unmistakable. He'd shower the moment he walked into their penthouse, claiming the day's stress clung to him. "Gotta wash it off, love," he'd say, his smile tight, eyes darting away. And his phone, once left carelessly on the counter, was now a constant shadow, locked, buzzing with messages he'd step away to answer. "Work stuff," he'd mutter, slipping into the study, leaving Zuri with the city's hum and her own doubts. She leaned back, her hair fanning across the chair, and closed her eyes. The memory of their early days flooded in. Thane's laughter, his hand warm in hers as they strolled along Lake Michigan, dreaming of a family. He'd been her rock, his ambition a mirror to her own. Now that rock felt like sand slipping through her fingers. Was she imagining things, letting Nia's suspicions poison her trust? Or was her heart seeing what her mind refused to accept? Zuri's chest tightened, a storm of love and betrayal warring within her. She was no fool, but love had a way of blurring edges, making her question her own instincts. Her fingers curled into fists, nails biting her palms. She wanted to scream, to shatter the glass and demand answers. But pride held her still, her African-American strength a fire beneath the hurt. She saw Thane lean closer to Lyra, kissing her forehead, a gesture he'd once reserved for Zuri. Her tears burned, but she blinked them back, refusing to let them fall. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a theft of her trust, her love, her future. The hospital's hum faded, replaced by the roar of her pulse. Was Lyra a knowing accomplice, or another victim of Thane's lies? The question gnawed, but Zuri's heart screamed louder. How could the man who'd vowed forever do this? She stepped back, her hair catching the light, her dress hugging her resolve. She wouldn't confront him here, not yet. The pain was too raw, her son's kicks a reminder of what mattered most. Zuri turned, her heels echoing in the corridor, each step a vow to herself. She was Zuri Brooks, daughter of resilience, and she'd face this truth with the strength she'd always carried. As she walked toward the exit, the Maserati's gleam mocked her, but her heart whispered a promise. This wasn't the end. Whatever Thane was hiding, she'd uncover it, and she'd rise. Zuri Brooks stood frozen outside the consultation room, her deep pink bodycon dress a vivid flame against the sterile white of Northwestern Memorial's maternity ward. Her long, sleek hair spilled over her shoulders, a cascade of strength framing her trembling frame. 8 months pregnant, her son's kicks pulsed against her belly, grounding her as the image of Thane's betrayal burned her eyes. His hand on Lyra's, his tender words about their child, a mirror of the promises he'd made her. Her heart was a battlefield, love shattered, rage rising, grief clawing at her core. She was an African-American queen, forged in resilience, yet the pain of Thane's double life threatened to break her. But Zuri Brooks didn't break. She burned. Her hand hovered over the door handle, every nerve screaming to flee, to cradle her son's life in solitude. But the fire in her soul demanded truth. She pushed the door open, the soft creak slicing through the room's intimacy. Thane's laugh died, his blue eyes widening as they met hers. Lyra, her blonde hair pulled tight, turned, her pregnant belly mirroring Zuri's, confusion flickering across her face. The ultrasound screen glowed behind them, a cruel reminder of the parallel lives Thane had woven. Zuri's voice, steady despite the storm within, cut the silence. "You said you were in New York, Thane. What's this?" Her words were a blade, sharp and deliberate, her hair swaying as she stepped forward. Thane leapt from his chair, his tailored suit crumpling, his face a mask of panic. "Zuri, love, this isn't... It's not what you think." His voice cracked, the charm that had once swept her off her feet now a desperate plea. Lyra's eyes darted between them, her hand clutching Thane's arm, then falling away. "Thane, who is she?" she asked, her voice trembling, a mirror to Zuri's own pain. Zuri's gaze locked on Lyra's, her heart twisting. Did this woman know, or was she another pawn in Thane's game? Her dress hugged her curves, a symbol of her unyielding presence. As she spoke, her tone cold as steel. "I'm his wife, Lyra. 8 months pregnant with his son. Just like you." The room seemed to collapse inward, the air thick with betrayal. Lyra's face drained of color, her hand flying to her mouth, realization crashing over her like a wave. "His wife?" she whispered, her eyes searching Thane's, pleading for a lie to cling to. But Thane stood mute, his mouth opening and closing, like a fish gasping for air. Zuri's heart pounded, her son's kicks a rhythm urging her to stand tall. She was no side piece, no afterthought. She was Zuri Brooks, daughter of a woman who'd faced the world alone, and she'd face this truth with the same fire. Her tears burned hot, but she refused to let them fall, her hair a sleek shield against her vulnerability. "Explain, Thane," Zuri demanded, stepping closer, her voice a low, dangerous growl. "Explain why you're here, holding her hand, naming her child, when you swore you were building a future with me." Her words dripped with rage, each one a lash for the man who'd stolen her trust. Thane stammered, "Zuri, I can fix this. It's a misunderstanding." His lies were pathetic, crumbling under the weight of her stare. Lyra's eyes filled with tears, her voice breaking. "You told me you were single, Thane. You said you loved me." The betrayal in her tone echoed Zuri's, a shared wound binding two women who should have been strangers. A nurse called her name, snapping her back. Zuri Brooks, the doctor's ready. She stood, smoothing her dress, her reflection in a nearby glass panel, fierce despite the tears threatening to spill. She was carrying life, a boy who deserved a father's love, a mother's strength. As she followed the nurse, her phone buzzed. Nia. Girl, I saw Thane again today. Loop. Same woman. Call me. Zuri's breath caught, her hand trembling. She wanted to dismiss it, to cling to the Thane who'd vowed forever. But the floral scent, the locked phone, the empty chair beside her, they were pieces of a puzzle she couldn't ignore. In the exam room, the ultrasound gel was cold, but her son's heartbeat was a warm anchor. He's perfect, the doctor said, smiling. Zuri nodded, her lips curving, but her heart ached. She was building a life for this child, but was Thane building another elsewhere? As the machine hummed, she made a silent vow. She'd face whatever truth awaited, not as a victim, but as the queen she was. Her son deserved that. She deserved that. The hospital's walls seemed to close in, but Zuri's resolve burned brighter, a spark ready to ignite. Zuri Brooks stepped out of the ultrasound room, her deep pink bodycon dress clinging to her pregnant frame, bold straps framing her shoulders, her long, sleek hair swaying like a curtain of resolve. The echo of her son's heartbeat still thrummed in her ears, a fragile anchor against the storm brewing in her heart. Northwestern Memorial's maternity ward bustled around her, nurses' soft chatter, the beep of monitors, but Zuri felt untethered, Naya's text searing her mind. Saw Thane again. Loop. Same woman. Her fingers tightened around her phone, the weight of doubt pressing harder than ever. She was an African-American queen, forged in fire, yet the loneliness of another solitary checkup gnawed at her, sharper now, laced with suspicion. As she crossed the hospital's polished corridor, her heels clicking against the tile, a glint of silver caught her eye through the glass doors leading to the parking garage. Her breath hitched. Thane's Maserati, its sleek curves unmistakable, parked just beyond the entrance. Her heart surged with a flicker of hope. Had he come after all? Had he skipped some boardroom meeting to share this moment, to hear their son's heartbeat? Zuri's lips curved, imagining his warm smile, his hand on her belly, the Thane she'd fallen for. She quickened her pace, her hair flowing behind her, the pink dress catching the light. Maybe he's here for us, she whispered, clinging to the dream. The maternity ward's waiting area faded as she pushed through the glass doors, her eyes scanning the garage. The Maserati gleamed under a fluorescent light, its presence a beacon. Zuri's heart pounded, a mix of anticipation and fear. She turned back toward the ward, her steps lighter, picturing Thane waiting inside, ready to apologize for his distance. But as she re-entered the corridor, a familiar laugh stopped her cold. Thane's laugh, warm and intimate, drifting from a consultation room down the hall. Her stomach twisted, hope curdling into dread. She moved closer, her breath shallow, each step heavier than the last. Through the small window in the door, Zuri's world shattered. Thane, her Thane, sat beside a white woman, her belly as round as Zuri's, her blonde hair pulled back. Lyra, his assistant, whom Zuri had met at Sterling Ventures galas, all polished smiles and professional nods. Thane's hand rested on Lyra's, his eyes soft as they studied an ultrasound screen. He's perfect, Lyra, he murmured, his voice tender, the same tone he'd once used with Zuri. What about naming him Elias? Lyra smiled, leaning into him. Elias Warwick, I love it. Zuri's heart thundered, her vision blurring. Her son's kicks felt like a plea, grounding her as the truth sank in. Thane was living a double life. She pressed a hand to the glass, her pink dress a stark contrast to the sterile room. Lyra's due date, overheard in their casual chatter, was 3 days after Zuri's. 3 days. The math was a knife to her chest. Thane had betrayed her, not just with an affair, but by building another family, parallel to hers. Every late night, every locked phone, every floral-scented suit flashed through her mind, no longer fragments, but a cruel mosaic. Zuri's knees trembled, but she stood tall, her hair a sleek shield. She was no side character in her own life. Yet the pain was visceral, a raw wound tearing open her dreams of a perfect family. Zuri's chest heaved, her son's movements anchoring her as the room spun. She wanted to scream, to tear apart the life Thane had painted with his promises. But her pride, her strength, held her upright. She looked at Lyra, seeing not an enemy but a mirror. Another woman deceived, her dreams shattered by the same man. "You didn't know," Zuri said softly, her voice steady despite the ache. "Neither of us deserved this." Lyra's nod was small, her eyes glistening, a silent alliance forming in the wreckage. Zuri turned to Thane, her hair catching the light, her dress a beacon of her resolve. "You don't get to play us both," she said, her voice a quiet storm. "This ends now." She walked out, her heels echoing like war drums, each step a vow to reclaim her power. Tears streamed down her face as she reached the corridor. But they weren't weakness. They were fuel. Her son deserved a mother who fought, who rose. As she pushed toward the exit, the hospital's sterile hum faded, replaced by the fire in her soul. Thane's betrayal had cracked her world, but Zuri would rebuild it, stronger, fiercer, unbroken. Zuri Brooks stormed out of Northwestern Memorial's maternity ward, her deep pink bodycon dress a blazing emblem of her defiance, bold straps framing her shoulders, her long, sleek hair streaming behind her like a battle flag. Her heart thundered, each beat a war cry against Thane's betrayal, his hand on Lyra's, his lies about a second child, a second life. 8 months pregnant, her son's kicks were a lifeline, tethering her to purpose as tears streaked her face. She was an African-American queen, forged in the fire of her mother's resilience. And though Thane's deception had cracked her world, she would not crumble. The Chicago night swallowed her as she slid into her car, the city's pulse a mirror to her rage. She wasn't a victim. She was a storm, and Thane would feel her wrath. Nia's Southside apartment was a sanctuary, its warm lights a stark contrast to the hospital's cold sterility. Zuri collapsed onto the worn couch, her dress clinging to her curves, her hair fanning across the cushions. Nia, her braids swinging, pressed a mug of chamomile tea into Zuri's trembling hands. "Girl, you're shaking," Nia said, her voice thick with concern. "Tell me everything." Zuri's throat tightened, the memory of Thane's panicked eyes, Lyra's shocked gasp, flooding back. "He's got another woman pregnant, Nia," she choked out, her voice raw. "Lyra, his assistant, due 3 days after me." Nia's eyes widened, her curse sharp. "That snake? We're burning his world down." Zuri's tears fell, but her heart sparked. Nia's fire fueled her own. The weight of betrayal pressed against Zuri's chest, a suffocating mix of grief and fury. She'd built a life with Thane, dreamed of their son growing up in a home filled with love. Now that dream was ash, and the man who'd vowed forever had woven a web of lies. But Zuri's soul burned brighter than her pain. She was no fragile thing to be discarded. Her son deserved a mother who fought, who carved justice from betrayal. "I need answers," she said, her voice steadier, her eyes meeting Nia's. "I need to know how deep this goes." Nia nodded, pulling out her phone. "I know a guy, Kyle. He hacks like nobody's business." Kyle arrived, a lanky figure with a laptop and a quiet intensity. Zuri, still in her pink dress, her hair a sleek cascade, watched as his fingers flew across the keys, cracking Thane's digital secrets. Her heart raced, a mix of dread and anticipation. "Got something," Kale said, his voice low. The screen lit up with bank records, accounts Zuri didn't know, payments to a Gold Coast condo in Lyra's name, and transfers siphoned from Sterling Ventures. "He's been funding a second life," Kale said, his eyes meeting hers. Zuri's breath caught, her son's kicks a steady rhythm against her shock. Thane hadn't just betrayed her heart, he'd stolen from his own empire. Her rage boiled, but it was tempered by a growing resolve. She wasn't just fighting for herself, but for her son, for Lyra, for every woman Thane had used. Zuri's fingers traced her belly, her voice a low vow. "He thinks he can play us? He's wrong." Nia grinned, fierce. "That's my sister." They called Celine, an African-American lawyer known for dismantling powerful men. Her office, a sleek loop high-rise, buzzed with purpose. Celine, her locks pulled back, leaned across her desk, her eyes gleaming as Zuri recounted the hospital scene. Thanes handed us a guillotine, she said, her smile sharp. Embezzlement, fraud, deception. We'll gut his empire. Zuri's heart pounded, a mix of fear and empowerment. She loved Thane, believed in his promises, but that love was now a weapon. Celine outlined the plan. Expose Thane at Sterling Ventures Investor Summit at the Drake Hotel, live streamed to thousands. We hit him where it hurts. His reputation, Celine said. Zuri nodded, her hair catching the office light, her dress a symbol of her unyielding spirit. The thought of facing Thane publicly, of stripping away his mask, sent a thrill through her. She wasn't just reclaiming her life, she was forging a blade to cut him down. As she left Celine's office, the Chicago skyline loomed, its lights a challenge. Zuri's son kicked, a reminder of why she fought. Her pain was raw, but her strength was fiercer. She was Zuri Brooks, daughter of resilience, and Thane's betrayal would not define her. She'd expose his lies, not with tears, but with fire. The city's hum seemed to cheer her on, a promise that her justice was coming. Zuri Brooks stood backstage at the Drake Hotel, her deep pink bodycon dress of vibrant armor, its bold straps framing her shoulders, her long, sleek hair a cascade of defiance. 9 months pregnant, her son's kicks pulsed like a war drum, fueling her resolve. The grand ballroom hummed with Chicago's elite, investors, board members, and Sterling Ventures' top brass, all gathered for the company's live-stream summit. Zuri's heart thundered, a storm of rage and empowerment swirling within her. Thane's betrayal, his hand on Lyra's, his secret life, had cracked her world, but tonight she'd shatter his. She was an African-American queen, forged in resilience, and this stage was her battlefield. Her fingers brushed her belly, a silent vow. This is for us, little man. The spotlight awaited, but Zuri's mind replayed the hospital scene. Thane's panicked eyes. Lyra's shock. The ultrasound screen mocking her dreams. She'd loved him, built a life on his promises, only to find them laced with lies. Now, armed with Cale's evidence and Celine's strategy, she was ready to expose him. Her breath hitched, not from fear, but from the fire in her soul. She wasn't just a scorned wife. She was a force, and Thane would feel her wrath. The MC's voice boomed, introducing her as Mrs. Warwick, here to honor Sterling's vision. Zuri's lips curved into a fierce smile. Honor? No. She delivered justice. She stepped onto the stage, her dress catching the light, her hair flowing like a river of strength. The crowd applauded, their smiles oblivious to the storm she carried. Thane sat at the front, his tailored suit pristine, his grin confident, unaware of the guillotine poised above him. Zuri's heart pounded, her son's kicks urging her forward. Thank you for having me, she began, her voice smooth, commanding. I'm here to celebrate Sterling Ventures and my husband, Thane Warwick, a man of vision, dedication, and secrets. The room stilled, her paws a blade slicing through their expectations. Thane's smile faltered, his eyes narrowing. Zuri clicked a remote, and the screen behind her lit up. A bank statement flashed, transfers to a Gold Coast condo in Lyra's name. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Thane has been funding a second life, she said, her voice steady, her eyes locked on his. Another slide, emails promising Lyra a future, photos of them house hunting, her belly as round as Zuri's. He's betrayed not just me, his wife, but another woman, both of us pregnant with his children, due days apart. The ballroom froze, every eye on Thane, whose face drained of color. Zuri's heart soared, not with joy, but with the thrill of reclaiming her power. Her voice rose, a crescendo of pain and strength. He's also betrayed Sterling Ventures, siphoning millions for his lies. A final slide. Cale's damning records of embezzlement. The crowd erupted in murmurs, board members shifting uncomfortably. Thane stood, his voice desperate. Zuri, stop! This is a mistake! But her gaze silenced him, her hair gleaming under the lights, her dress a beacon of her resolve. No, Thane, your mistake was thinking you could break us. She turned to the crowd, her son's kicks anchoring her. I'm Zuri Brooks, and I stand here not as a victim, but as a woman demanding truth. Security moved toward Thane, their steps heavy against the polished floor. The board chairman rose, his voice cutting through the chaos. Mr. Warwick, you're relieved of your duties, effective immediately. Thane's eyes met Zuri's, pleading, but she held firm, her heart a fortress. The crowd's whispers grew to a roar, cameras flashing, the live stream broadcasting Thane's fall to thousands. Zuri's chest heaved, her emotions a tangled dance of triumph and sorrow. She'd loved this man, dreamed of their son's future, but his lies had turned that love to ash. Yet in exposing him, she felt alive, her African-American strength blazing. As security escorted Thane out, his head bowed. Zuri stood tall, her hair a sleek crown, her dress a symbol of her unyielding spirit. The pain of his betrayal lingered, a dull ache beneath her victory. She'd torn down his empire, but her heart still mourned the man she'd thought he was. Her son kicked, a reminder of why she fought. She wasn't just saving herself. She was carving a world where her child would know truth, not lies. The crowd's eyes followed her as she left the stage, her steps steady, her soul alight. She was Zuri Brooks, unbroken, and this was only the beginning of her rise. Zuri Brooks stepped out of the Drake Hotel's grand ballroom, her deep pink bodycon dress a radiant emblem of her triumph, its bold straps framing her shoulders, her long, sleek hair flowing like a banner of resilience. Her heart pounded, a tempest of relief and raw pain, as the echo of Thane's fall, his humiliated exit under security's grip, lingered in her ears. 9 months pregnant, her son's kicks were a steady pulse, anchoring her to the life she was fighting for. The Chicago night enveloped her, the city's lights glinting like stars. But Zuri's soul was a battlefield. She'd torn down Thane's empire, exposed his lies to thousands, yet the ache of his betrayal clung to her, a shadow she couldn't outrun. She was an African-American queen, forged in fire, and though victorious, her heart still bled. In the quiet of her car, the city's hum faded, replaced by the roar of her emotions. She gripped the steering wheel, her hair catching the dashboard's glow, tears streaming down her face. She'd stood tall on that stage, her voice a blade cutting through Thane's deception. But now, alone, the weight of it all crashed over her. She'd loved him, built dreams of a family, only to find he'd woven a second life with Lyra, another woman pregnant with his child. Her son kicked, a fierce reminder of her purpose. "We did it, little man," she whispered, her voice cracking. "He can't hurt us anymore." But the victory felt bittersweet, her heart mourning the Thane she'd thought she knew. Nia's apartment was a haven, its familiar warmth wrapping around Zuri as she collapsed onto the couch, her dress clinging to her curves. Nia, her braids swinging, knelt beside her, eyes fierce with pride. "You were a warrior out there, Zuri," she said, squeezing her hand. "The whole city's talking about it." Zuri's lips trembled, a half-smile breaking through her tears. The livestream had spread like wildfire. Thane's board had fired him, the SEC was circling, and whispers of lawsuits filled the air. But Zuri's heart was a tangle of triumph and grief. "I humiliated him, Nia," she said softly. "But why does it still hurt?" Nia's gaze softened. "Because you loved him. That doesn't vanish overnight." Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Zuri's breath caught as she read it. "This is Lyra. I saw the live stream. I'm sorry, I didn't know about you. I have emails proving he lied to me too. Let me help." Zuri's heart twisted, a mix of shock and empathy. Lyra, the woman she'd seen in Thane's arms, wasn't an enemy but a mirror, another victim of his deceit. Her fingers hovered over the reply, her son's kicks urging her forward. "Thank you," she typed, her voice a whisper in her mind. "We'll talk soon." The alliance, fragile but real, sparked a flicker of hope in her chest. She wasn't alone in this pain. Hours later in Northwestern Memorial's delivery room, Zuri's world shifted again. Contractions gripped her, each one a wave of pain and promise. Her dress was gone, replaced by a hospital gown, but her strength remained, her hair fanned across the pillow. Nia held her hand, her voice a steady anchor. "You're doing this, Zuri. For you, for your son. The labor was grueling, but Zuri's heart burned with purpose. She'd faced Thane's lies, exposed him to the world, and now she'd bring life into it. With a final push, her son's cry pierced the air, a sound that shattered her lingering grief. The nurse placed him in her arms, his tiny face perfect, his eyes a mirror of her own. She named him Jet, meaning freedom, a testament to the life she'd reclaim. Holding him, Zuri's tears fell, not from pain, but from a love so fierce it eclipsed her wounds. Thane had tried to break her, but Jet was proof that she was unbreakable. "You're my everything," she whispered, kissing his forehead, her hair brushing his cheek. The hospital room faded, the world narrowing to her son's warmth. Nia grinned, tears in her eyes. "He's beautiful, Zuri, just like his mama." Zuri's heart swelled, her African-American strength a beacon in the quiet. News trickled in. Thane's empire was crumbling, lawsuits piling up, his reputation in ashes. Zuri felt a pang, not for him but for the life she'd once dreamed. Yet holding Jet, she knew she'd chosen right. She'd exposed Thane, not for revenge, but for truth, for Jet, for Lyra. Her pain was still raw, but her son's tiny hand curled around her finger, promising a future she'd define. She was Zuri Brooks, a queen rising from betrayal, and this moment, Jet's first breath, was her victory. Zuri Brooks stood in the heart of Bronzeville, her deep pink bodycon dress a vibrant testament to her strength, its bold straps framing her shoulders, her long, sleek hair cascading like a crown of resilience. The Chicago sun bathed the street in gold, reflecting off the windows of obsidian homes, her newly launched haven for single mothers. Jet, her infant son, slept in a stroller beside her, his tiny chest rising and falling, a living symbol of the freedom she'd named him for. Thane's betrayal, his secret life with Lyra, his embezzlement exposed on a live-streamed stage, had shattered her world, but Zuri had rebuilt it, brick by brick, with a fire that refused to dim. Her heart, once a battlefield of grief and rage, now pulsed with purpose, her African-American spirit soaring. Yet the scars of love lost lingered, a quiet ache beneath her triumph. The grand opening of Obsidian Homes buzzed around her, the community's energy a chorus of support. Women, many single mothers like Zuri, filled the space, their laughter and stories weaving a tapestry of resilience. Zuri's chest swelled with pride, her hair catching the light as she greeted each guest. This wasn't just a business. It was her legacy, born from the ashes of Thane's lies. She'd used her divorce settlement, secured by Celine's legal prowess, to fund this dream, a place where women could find strength, resources, and hope. Holding Jet's stroller, she felt his presence anchor her, his tiny existence a reminder of why she'd fought. "This is for you, little man," she whispered, her voice thick with love. Her sister Nia, braids swinging, sidled up, her grin fierce. "You did this, Zuri. Look at these women. You're changing lives." Zuri's eyes glistened, her heart a tangle of joy and lingering pain. She'd exposed Thane at the Drake, watched his empire crumble, but the memory of his tender promises, now revealed as lies, still stung. "I couldn't have done it without you," Zuri said, squeezing Nia's hand. Her sister's unwavering support had been her lifeline, from the hospital confrontation to the legal battles that followed. Celine had ensured Thane lost everything, his CEO title, most of his assets, his reputation. He now scraped by as a freelance consultant, his name a whisper of scandal in Chicago's elite circles. Zuri's gaze drifted to Jet, his tiny fingers curling in sleep. She'd named him for freedom, and she was determined to teach him what it meant. "You'll grow up knowing your worth," she murmured, her hair brushing his cheek as she leaned down. Thane was allowed supervised visits, court-ordered and tightly controlled, his every interaction with Jet monitored. Zuri's heart tightened at the thought. She'd once dreamed of Thane as a father, his laughter filling their penthouse. Now that dream was gone, replaced by a fierce resolve to protect her son from his father's flaws. She wasn't raising Jet to distrust love, but to value truth, to see his mother as a queen who rose from betrayal. A message from Lyra had arrived that morning, a quiet note of gratitude. "I'm in Portland now, starting over. Thank you for showing me I wasn't alone. Zuri's throat tightened, empathy flooding her. Lyra too had been deceived, her pregnancy a parallel wound. Their brief alliance, Lyra's emails bolstering Zuri's case, had turned Thane's lies into chains. Zuri had replied, "We're stronger than his deceit." The words were a vow, not just for Lyra, but for herself. She'd carried the pain of Thane's double life, but it hadn't broken her. Instead, it had forged her into something fiercer, a woman who defined her own worth. Obsidian Homes was thriving, its impact rippling through Bronzeville. Zuri moved through the crowd, her dress a beacon, her hair a flowing crown. Women shared their stories, escaping abuse, rebuilding after loss. And Zuri listened, her heart swelling. She saw herself in them, her own journey mirrored in their eyes. Thane's betrayal had been a crucible, burning away her illusions, but revealing her strength. She'd stood on that stage, exposed his lies, not for revenge, but for justice. For Jet, for Lyra, for herself. The pain lingered, a soft echo, but it no longer ruled her. Her son's future, her mission, her community. These were her crown. As the event wound down, Zuri stepped outside, Jet's stroller beside her, the Chicago skyline a backdrop of possibility. She smoothed her dress, her hair catching the breeze, and looked at her son. "You'll know a mother who fights," she said softly, her voice steady. "You'll know love doesn't lie." The city's pulse seemed to nod, its energy a promise of new beginnings. Zuri's heart, once shattered, was whole. Not perfect, but hers. She was Zuri Brooks, an African-American queen, and her story wasn't one of loss, but of triumph. She'd risen from Thane's ashes, and with Jet by her side, she'd built a legacy that shone brighter than any betrayal. Zuri Brooks's journey, from a shattered heart in a Chicago hospital to a radiant queen in Bronzeville, proves that betrayal doesn't define us. Our strength does. Her deep pink dress, her sleek hair, her son Jet, they're symbols of a woman who turned pain into power. Zuri's fire lit up Obsidian Homes, a beacon for others, and her story begs you to reflect. Have you faced a truth that broke you, only to find your own resilience? Share your thoughts below. Your voice matters. Smash that like button if Zuri's courage stirred you, and subscribe for more tales of unbreakable spirits. Thank you for walking this path with Zuri, for feeling her tears and triumphs. Her story isn't just hers, it's a spark for us all. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and never let anyone dim your light.